Ladies and gentlemen, there are moments in life when the loudest thing you can do is nothing. You ever find yourself in a situation where words seem to fall short, where people expect a response from you, but you know deep down that the best thing you can offer is silence? The power of silence is often underestimated in a world that constantly demands answers and reactions. We live in a time when every moment feels like it requires a response, a reaction, a statement, a defense. But what if, instead of responding to every situation, you chose to stay silent? What if you chose to withhold your words for a moment longer than expected? There's a strength in silence that the world doesn't always understand. It's a power that doesn't scream for attention, but instead quietly holds its ground. Silence allows you to observe, to listen, and to truly understand what's happening around you. While everyone else is caught up in the noise, in the chaos, in the rush to be heard, you have the opportunity to step back, to evaluate, to think before you speak. The beauty of silence is that it isn't passive. It doesn't mean you're disengaging. It means you're choosing to engage on your own terms. Instead of letting someone else's words or actions dictate your emotions, silence gives you the power to remain centered, grounded in your own truth. It's a way of saying, I don't need to react to prove my worth. I don't need to say something just to say something. It's about not being controlled by the expectations of others. When you remain silent, you take control of the situation because you're no longer at the mercy of external forces. You're not giving in to the pressure to speak. Silence also serves as a tool for clarity. In moments of tension, it's easy to be swept up in emotion, to say something you might regret later, but when you practice silence, you give yourself the gift of reflection. You create space between the trigger and the response, allowing yourself time to process, to understand, and to choose the most effective action. It's in this pause that wisdom is often found. The power of silence is that it allows you to avoid knee-jerk reactions and to act from a place of strength, understanding, and purpose. Moreover, silence communicates something profound to those around you. When the world expects you to react, to get defensive, to argue, and you choose silence, it forces people to reconsider. Your silence can be more powerful than any argument. It leaves others wondering why you aren't reacting the way they anticipated. They can't read you, they can't manipulate you. It keeps them guessing, and in that uncertainty, they lose their power over you. But it doesn't stop there. Silence has the power to shape how we view ourselves. When we're able to remain silent in a world that is always shouting for attention, we can feel more at peace with who we are. Silence teaches us that we don't need to be constantly validated by others. We don't need to prove ourselves in every conversation, in every interaction. When we embrace the power of silence, we step into a deeper connection with ourselves and our purpose. Control over reaction is one of the most powerful tools we can have in our lives. We live in a world that thrives on immediacy, immediate responses, instant gratification, and constant feedback. In the midst of this, we are constantly encouraged to react quickly to situations and people, especially when emotions are stirred. But the true power lies not in reacting to every situation, but in choosing when and how to respond. When we allow our emotions to dictate our reactions, we hand over control to external circumstances. Someone says something that hurts us, and in that instant, we feel the need to defend ourselves, to lash out, to make sure our side is heard. But in that moment, we lose control. We're no longer acting, we're reacting. We're no longer in the driver's seat of our own life, but instead, we're at the mercy of others' words and actions. True control comes when we realize that we don't need to react immediately. When we take a moment to pause, to breathe, to assess the situation before responding, we gain our power. In that pause, we are able to filter out the noise and focus on what really matters. We can separate ourselves from the emotional triggers and respond in a way that aligns with our values, with the person we aspire to be. This moment of stillness, this deliberate choice to control our reaction, is where strength is born. What makes this control over reaction so powerful is that it frees us from the control others have over us. Think about it. When someone provokes you, they're attempting to get a reaction out of you, whether it's anger, frustration, or self-defense. They want to see you react because they know your response reveals something about you. But when you control your reaction, when you choose silence over shouting, when you choose calm over chaos, you take the power back. You no longer let them dictate the terms of the encounter. In those moments, silence speaks volumes. Your ability to stay composed, to refuse to react impulsively, creates an environment where others are forced to reckon with their own behavior. Your response, or lack thereof, shows them that their attempts to provoke you have no effect. It's a subtle but powerful way of establishing boundaries. It tells others, I will not be controlled by your actions or words. I am in charge of my own emotion. But control over reaction is not about suppression. It's not about bottling up your feelings or pretending like they don't exist. It's about choosing how and when to express them. It's about not letting your emotions lead you into a reaction you'll regret later. Often, our most regrettable actions come from moments when we've acted without thinking, when we've reacted out of impulse or pride. By controlling our reactions, we protect ourselves from making decisions that don't align with who we truly are or where we want to go. It's also important to realize that controlling your reaction is a form of self-respect. When you react in haste, you can say things that hurt others, or worse, hurt yourself. But when you take control over your emotions and choose to respond with calmness, you maintain your integrity, you preserve your peace. Your ability to control your reaction says that you value yourself enough to not be swept up in every storm. You are not a prisoner to your impulses. Control over reaction also brings clarity. When you don't immediately react, you have time to evaluate the situation, to process what's happening, and to decide the best course of action. You gain perspective. And it's in this space that wisdom can grow. When we react immediately, we often do so without full understanding of the situation, without knowing all the facts. But when we choose to control our reactions, we make decisions from a place of knowledge, reflection, and intentionality. The beauty of controlling your reaction is that it creates space for thoughtful, deliberate actions. It allows you to respond with purpose rather than with the flow of emotions. When you control your reaction, you take a moment to ask yourself, what do I want my response to reflect about who I am? What message do I want to send in this moment? It transforms you from a person who simply reacts to someone who acts with intent and purpose. It empowers you to shape your life rather than simply being shaped by the circumstances around you. Strength in restraint is often misunderstood. People often equate restraint with weakness or passivity, but nothing could be further from the truth. Restraint is not about holding back because you lack the ability to act. It's about holding back because you choose to. It's about having the self-discipline to recognize when action is unnecessary, when silence is more powerful than words, and when letting go of the need to control everything is actually a display of inner strength. True strength isn't always loud and forceful. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is to remain composed and not give in to the impulse to react. The ability to restrain yourself in the face of provocation, frustration, or emotional pressure shows that you have control over your mind and your emotions. It means that you're not ruled by the chaos around you. Rather, you are guided by your inner peace and wisdom. Restraint is strength because it takes more courage to hold back than it does to let loose. It takes a person of true character to say, I will not allow myself to be moved by anger, by fear, or by the actions of others. When you restrain yourself, you are practicing a level of emotional intelligence that allows you to process situations more effectively. It's easy to give in to emotion, to let the heat of the moment dictate your actions. But when you choose restraint, you give yourself the time and space to make decisions based on clarity, not on knee-jerk reactions. Restraint allows you to step outside of the situation long enough to evaluate it properly, to understand the motivations of others, and to determine the best response from a place of reason and understanding rather than from a place of emotion. Restraint in the face of conflict is perhaps the most telling example of strength. When we are provoked, it's human nature to want to defend ourselves or prove our point, yet choosing restraint in those moments doesn't mean you're giving up your position. It means you are secure enough in who you are and in your beliefs that you don't feel the need to engage in every battle. You realize that not every situation demands a response, and not every disagreement requires your involvement. Strength in restraint means knowing when to step back and when to stand firm. Moreover, restraint helps protect relationships. In heated moments, the words we say can either build up or tear down the people around us. When we act impulsively, we may end up saying things that we don't mean or making decisions that we later regret. But when we practice restraint, we avoid hurting others in moments of frustration. Restraint allows us to hold back from saying things that could cause harm, to give the other person space to express themselves without immediately jumping in to correct them, and to ensure that we respond with respect and consideration rather than letting emotions dictate the tone of the conversation. It's important to recognize that strength in restraint doesn't mean being passive or submissive. It doesn't mean letting others walk over you or ignoring injustices. Instead, it's about choosing the right time to act. Restraint teaches you the value of patience and timing. There are times when silence is the most powerful response and times when speaking out is necessary. But when you have the strength to know the difference, you demonstrate a wisdom that is not easily shaken. Restraint is also a form of self-care. Often, when we react impulsively, we end up exhausted, physically, mentally, or emotionally. We give so much of ourselves to situations that don't deserve our energy, leaving us drained and depleted. But when we practice restraint, we conserve our emotional energy. We reserve our responses for the moments that truly matter. This helps us avoid burnout, resentment, or unnecessary stress, and instead focus our efforts where they can have the most impact. Strength in restraint also means resisting the temptation to control every aspect of your life or the lives of others. In a world that constantly encourages us to assert our will, control every outcome, and ensure things go our way, restraint teaches us that we can't and shouldn't control everything. Restraint helps us realize that there is power in letting go, in trusting that things will unfold as they are meant to, and that sometimes stepping back is the best way to move forward. It's about understanding that we don't need to force our will onto the world to get what we want. Restraint allows us to trust the process, to trust ourselves, and to trust that everything will fall into place at the right time. In this way, restraint becomes not only a strength, but a gift we give ourselves. The more we practice restraint, the more we discover about our own resilience, wisdom, and ability to navigate the world with a sense of peace. Restraint isn't a sign of weakness. It is the foundation of true power. Deep reflection is one of the most transformative practices we can embrace in our lives. In a world that moves so quickly, it can be easy to overlook the importance of slowing down and taking the time to truly think about our thoughts, actions, and decisions. But reflection isn't simply about looking back. It's about looking inward, understanding the present, and gaining clarity for the future. When we engage in deep reflection, we begin to strip away the noise and distractions that fill our daily lives. It's a process of tuning out everything around us and tuning into ourselves. It's about creating space to ask the tough questions. What are my true desires? Why do I respond the way I do in certain situations? What are my fears, my motivations, and my beliefs? By taking the time to reflect deeply, we begin to uncover the truths that lie beneath the surface, often revealing patterns, behaviors, and thought processes that we might not have noticed before. This insight gives us the opportunity to grow and evolve, to change the things that no longer serve us. Deep reflection also helps us develop a sense of perspective. When we face difficult or challenging situations, it's easy to get caught up in the heat of the moment and let emotions cloud our judgment. But reflection allows us to step outside of ourselves and gain a broader view of the situation. We can ask ourselves, What can I learn from this experience? How did I contribute to this situation? What can I do differently next time? This perspective gives us the opportunity to see our challenges not as obstacles, but as lessons that propel us toward growth and improvement. In the process of deep reflection, we also confront our weaknesses. It's easy to reflect on our successes and the things we did right, but true reflection requires us to look at the areas where we fell short. It's about being honest with ourselves, recognizing where we could have done better, and being open to the idea of self-improvement. This can be uncomfortable, but it's in this discomfort that true transformation occurs. Reflection isn't about self-criticism, it's about self-awareness. It's about understanding that while we are all imperfect, we have the power to learn, adapt, and change. By acknowledging our shortcomings, we free ourselves from the cycle of self-doubt and give ourselves the opportunity to do better next time. Deep reflection also gives us the chance to reconnect with our values and priorities. In the midst of daily life and external pressures, it's easy to lose sight of what truly matters to us. We can become so focused on meeting the demands of others or chasing external success that we forget to check in with ourselves. Reflection offers a moment of clarity, a chance to ask, am I living in alignment with my values? Am I pursuing the things that truly bring me joy and fulfillment? Or am I simply going through the motions? By reflecting deeply, we can realign our actions with our true purpose, ensuring that we are living a life that is authentic and meaningful. Furthermore, reflection provides us with the ability to heal. We all carry wounds, emotional scars from past experiences that continue to influence the way we see the world and interact with others. These wounds may be buried beneath the surface, but when we take the time to reflect deeply, we begin to uncover and confront them. Reflection helps us process pain, release resentment, and make peace with our past. It allows us to see that the pain we experienced doesn't define us. Rather, it's part of our story, and it can be used to help us grow stronger. This healing process is essential for our emotional and mental well-being, enabling us to move forward with greater peace and resilience. Another powerful aspect of deep reflection is that it helps us develop gratitude. In the hustle of daily life, we often focus on what we don't have or what we still need to achieve. But when we take a moment to reflect on all that we've accomplished, all the lessons we've learned, and all the people and experiences that have shaped us, we begin to cultivate a sense of gratitude. Reflection helps us recognize the beauty in the small moments, the growth in the challenges, and the strength in our journey. Gratitude, born from deep reflection, shifts our mindset from one of scarcity to one of abundance, allowing us to approach life with a greater sense of appreciation and contentment. Lastly, deep reflection allows us to take ownership of our lives. It's easy to blame circumstances, other people, or the world for the way things are. But when we reflect, we come face to face with the reality that we are the ones who have the power to shape our future. Reflection empowers us to take responsibility for our choices, to understand the consequences of our actions, and to make decisions that are aligned with the life we want to create. It reminds us that while we may not be able to control everything that happens to us, we always have control over how we respond. Power over expectations is one of the most profound forms of personal freedom we can experience. From the moment we're born, we are bombarded by expectations from our parents, teachers, peers, society, and even ourselves. There are expectations about how we should behave, how we should succeed, how we should look, and how we should feel. These external pressures can create a constant sense of obligation to meet the standards set by others, and the weight of trying to fulfill these expectations can be overwhelming. But true power lies in reclaiming control over those expectations and understanding that we don't have to live according to anyone else's vision of who we should be. When we give power to others' expectations, we become prisoners to their ideals. We start to shape our lives, our decisions, and our identities around what others think is right or acceptable, We adjust ourselves, our actions, and our dreams to fit into predefined molds, constantly striving for approval or validation. But living this way often leaves us feeling unfulfilled, disconnected, and exhausted because we're not living our truth. We're living to meet the criteria of someone else's narrative. We give away our autonomy, our agency, and our power by trying to fit into boxes that were never meant for us. Reclaiming power over expectations means choosing to live authentically. It means learning to hear the voices around us, but deciding which ones we allow to influence us. It means understanding that we are not bound by the expectations of others, but instead we have the ability to define who we are, what we value, and how we choose to live our lives. When we stop living for the approval of others and begin to live for ourselves, we create space for our own desires, dreams, and individuality. We become free from the constant pressure to measure up to a standard that doesn't even align with our true selves. One of the most liberating aspects of owning the power over expectations is that it allows us to make decisions based on our own values and priorities rather than the demands of others. The world is full of people who will tell you how you should spend your time, who you should become, or what you should want. But when you have power over expectations, you take responsibility for your own choices. You are no longer at the mercy of external voices telling you what's best for your life. Instead, you listen to your own heart, your own intuition, and your own sense of purpose. You make decisions that align with your deepest beliefs and aspirations, not the ones imposed upon you by society or the people around you. Power over expectations also means embracing imperfection. So often we fear failure or falling short because we think we are letting someone down, whether it's a parent, a mentor, or society itself. We feel the weight of their expectations, and that fear holds us back from trying new things or taking risks. But when we reclaim power over these expectations, we free ourselves from the burden of perfection. We accept that mistakes are a part of the process, that failure doesn't define us, and that our worth is not contingent on meeting others' standards. We are allowed to be human, to learn and to grow without the fear of disappointing others. Furthermore, power over expectations allows us to create our own definitions of success. Society has a narrow view of what success looks like. High-paying jobs, big houses, social status. And while there's nothing wrong with these things, when we live our lives according to someone else's definition of success, we may end up chasing goals that don't truly resonate with us. But when we take control over our expectations, we decide what success looks like for us. Success becomes about living a life that reflects our values, achieving personal growth, and cultivating deep relationships, whatever that means for each of us individually. We stop measuring our worth by societal markers of success and start measuring it by our own sense of fulfillment and peace. Another aspect of having power over expectations is the ability to embrace the present moment. We often get so caught up in future expectations, whether it's the next promotion, the next milestone, or the next achievement, that we forget to appreciate the now. Expectations can pull us out of the present and cause us to focus on what we think we should be doing rather than what we are actually doing. When we release ourselves from the weight of future expectations, we open ourselves up to fully experiencing the present moment. We learn to enjoy the journey rather than being fixated on the destination, allowing us to cultivate contentment, gratitude, and peace in our lives. Taking control over expectations also helps us manage external pressures. We live in a world where there's a constant stream of expectations, many of which are unrealistic or harmful. People have their own agendas, their own needs, and their own desires for us. And if we're not careful, we can end up living our lives in service to others' demands. But when we understand that we have the power to say no, to set boundaries, and to protect our energy, we regain our sovereignty. We don't allow the demands of others to dictate how we spend our time or where we direct our attention. We decide where to invest ourselves, what to prioritize, and when to say yes and when to say no. Finally, power over expectations means cultivating the ability to be at peace with who we are. We stop comparing ourselves to others, trying to meet their expectations, and instead focus on nurturing our own self-acceptance. We understand that we are enough just as we are, and that we don't need to constantly measure up to anyone else's standard of success, beauty, or worth. When we live with this understanding, we are able to live with confidence and peace, no longer weighed down by the unrealistic expectations placed upon us by others or ourselves. We are free to pursue our own path, to live our own truth, and to be at peace with the person we are becoming. Focusing on purpose is a powerful and transformative practice that can radically shift the way we live our lives. In the midst of life's chaos, distractions, and demands, it's easy to lose sight of what truly matters. We get caught up in the grind, chasing after fleeting goals or living to meet the expectations of others, often at the expense of our deeper calling. But when we focus on purpose, everything changes. Our actions become more intentional, our decisions more aligned with who we are at our core, and our lives more fulfilling. Purpose is not just a lofty ideal. It is the guiding force that shapes every aspect of our lives. It's the reason we wake up each day, the deeper why behind everything we do. When we know our purpose, we gain clarity about what is important and what is not. We stop wasting time on things that don't align with our values and focus our energy on what truly matters. Instead of getting lost in the noise, we begin to tune in to the inner voice that calls us toward our destiny. When we live with purpose, we can prioritize our time, energy, and resources in a way that is meaningful, fulfilling, and impactful. Living with purpose requires intentionality. It means being deliberate in our actions, not just drifting through life without direction. Many of us go through life on autopilot, responding to the demands of the moment without ever taking a step back to evaluate whether we are heading in the right direction. But purpose calls us to slow down, reflect, and check in with ourselves. It forces us to ask tough questions. Am I living in alignment with my true value? Am I moving toward the life I want to create? Or am I simply reacting to circumstances? Focusing on purpose invites us to assess our lives, to ensure that we are living in a way that reflects our deepest desires, not the pressures or expectations of others. Purpose also serves as a powerful filter for decision-making. Life constantly presents us with choices, big and small, that can either bring us closer to or further from our purpose. Without purpose, we may find ourselves saying yes to things we don't really care about or pursuing goals that aren't aligned with our true values. But when we are clear on our purpose, decision-making becomes easier. We can evaluate every opportunity through the lens of whether it supports or hinders our purpose. We ask ourselves, does this decision take me closer to the life I want to build, or does it distract me from my true path? With purpose as our compass, we can make choices with confidence and clarity, knowing that each decision contributes to the bigger picture of our lives. Focusing on purpose also helps us overcome obstacles and challenges with resilience. Life is full of struggles, setbacks, disappointments, and difficulties that threaten to derail us. But when we are clear on our purpose, we can weather these storms with a sense of determination and perseverance. Purpose gives us the strength to keep going when things get tough. It reminds us that our struggles are not pointless. They are part of the process of growth and progress. When we face adversity, we can lean into our purpose as a source of motivation, knowing that the challenges we face are pushing us closer to becoming the person we are meant to be. Furthermore, purpose allows us to cultivate a sense of fulfillment and satisfaction that external achievements alone cannot provide. In today's world, success is often measured by external markers, career accomplishments, financial wealth, social status. But these things can feel empty if they are not connected to a deeper sense of purpose. Pursuing a life of purpose gives us the fulfillment that comes from knowing we are contributing to something greater than ourselves. It brings a sense of meaning and satisfaction that transcends material success. When we focus on purpose, we realize that true fulfillment comes not from what we have, but from who we are and what we are contributing to the world around us. In addition to personal fulfillment, living with purpose also enables us to make a positive impact on others. When we are clear about our purpose, we can use our talents, skills, and resources to serve others in meaningful ways. Purpose-driven individuals don't live for themselves alone. They understand that their lives are part of a bigger story. They recognize that their purpose is interconnected with the lives of others, and they use their time and energy to create positive change. Purpose helps us transcend self-centeredness and move toward a life of service, where we find joy in lifting others up and making the world a better place. The beauty of focusing on purpose is that it shifts our perspective on time. Often we feel like we are running out of time, that life is slipping away, and that we need to rush to accomplish everything. But when we live with purpose, time becomes something to be treasured, not something to be feared. We begin to understand that time is our most precious resource, and how we spend it matters deeply. Purpose allows us to slow down and make the most of each moment. We no longer waste time chasing after things that don't matter, and instead we invest our time in ways that are meaningful, fulfilling, and aligned with our deepest values. Moreover, focusing on purpose enables us to cultivate a sense of inner peace and clarity. In a world filled with distractions, it's easy to get caught up in the chaos of life. We can become overwhelmed by the constant flow of information, the demands of work and relationships, and the pressure to keep up with everyone else. But when we focus on purpose, we learn to tune out the noise. We simplify our lives and focus on the things that truly matter. Purpose becomes our anchor, providing a sense of calm in the midst of the storm. It helps us stay grounded in who we are, regardless of the external pressures and distractions that surround us. Finally, focusing on purpose is an act of self-respect and self-love. It is the recognition that we are worthy of living a life that is true to who we are. It's about honoring our unique gifts, talents, and passions, and using them to contribute to the world in a way that is authentic and meaningful. Purpose allows us to stand in our power, to step into the fullness of who we are, and to live a life that is not dictated by fear, doubt, or the expectations of others. It is a declaration that we are worthy of living a life that aligns with our truest desires and deepest values.